Why Colin Cowherd and Mel Kiper don't like Falcons draft pick? You see hot. You know what time is. Oh, almost forget. Falcons re-up Drizzy Drake 5-year option. How Simo say, welcome to Birdmouth. Mixed reviews about the Falcons draft picks, Jeff Ulbrich's son, and some of our undrafted free agents. But first I want to talk about how easy it's become to just clown the Falcons. Now let's re-examine what the Falcons actually gave up to get James Pearce. This year's first round draft pick from the Rams in exchange for our first rounder next year. Our second rounder this year and the seventh rounder this year for their third rounder this year. Now to me, this is the type of move that the Ravens would have pulled off, but because we're the Falcons, we get clowned for it. And I'm not being a fan, but I think that this is a fair trade on both sides. I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why I think that the Falcons actually made a good decision. This is instant satisfaction of an immediate need. Let's look at it like this. Say you need to get from point A to point B right now to pay your bills, but someone said, I'll trade you that car that's running today for a car that may or may not be better next year. You're not gonna do that. You're gonna take the car that's running right now because you gotta take care of bills right now. And that's all we did as the Falcons. We took care of something that we needed today and gave up the promise of something next year. And if you look at it this year, it wasn't gonna be an edge rusher available right there at that second round pick that we had. We weren't gonna be able to get James Pearce this year or any of the guys that were comparable to him. I don't think that James Pearce would have made it into the second round. I remember this time last year when people were so upset that we went after Michael Penix and they were like, oh, we could have got a quarterback next year. But by the time that we would have picked this year, definitely weren't going to get Cam Ward. So we weren't going to get a quarterback that was better than Michael Penix. And conversely, even if we didn't get James Pearce this year, I'm not certain that we would have a better draft pick next year than we had this year. I think that this team is actually going to be better. Second is projections, both player and the team. Now, a lot of these analysts love to quote PFF, but they're skipping over the fact that James Pearce was a number 4 rated pass rusher in this draft by PFF. And if you look at the range of outcomes for him, they say that he can either be a situational guy at worst, or he's probably going to be an all-pro at best. And honestly, I think both of those outcomes are really good for the Falcons. I would take a bet on that. Maybe 8 to 10 sacks over the course of the season. I think that's worth a first-round pick. Everybody knows that James Pearce is a really good pass rusher, and there's questions about him playing the run, but actually, when you look at the tape, he ain't scared to mix it up. He likes to get physical and play the run. He knows a speed rusher, but his power rush still gives tackles problems. They have problems setting their feet and just anchoring in against him. Next year, they have us going to the playoffs. Your draft pick for next year, if you're in the playoffs, maybe early 20s. I don't think that that's that big of a trade-off. Making it to the divisional or conference championship diminishes that value. They're betting on our team to be better at the end of next year than it was at the end of this year. And that's a winner's mentality. Right now, the Falcons are kind of coming up on the first wave of a couple of windows because we have a lot of young guys, and Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts if he does his thing. They're all coming up real soon. We've got some vets that are somewhat in their prime that can help us get to a title. Jesse Bates and Caden Ellis that are free agents that we signed, as well as David Onyemata, who are all coming to the end of their contracts. Right now, you got to fill the immediate gaps and the immediate holes you have. And if we're hoping to compete, we're going to have to go against the likes of Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, who ran all over us and we didn't have an answer for a guy who could spy him or get to him. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, all these mobile quarterbacks out here. We need a guy that can get after the quarterback, and we doubled down by getting 2 of them. And last but not least, I think it's just really good roster construction. Going back to the analogy of the car. If you're going to put a new radiator in your car, you're going to get another water pump. Now, if Jalen Walker is the new engine that we're putting into this rebuilt classic car that we're hoping to see run, definitely James Pearce is the transmission. You get things in tandem, you do them right the first time. Now, sometimes he does have problems losing contain right here. This is where a player like Jalen Walker is really great. Jalen Walker would close the speed on this real quick. Plays like this were actually a problem for the Falcons a lot last year. I also think that this gives us a plan of how we could better use Walker. And also, a guy like Leonard Floyd, who's been a proven vet in this league, I don't know if he's enough. I think it was a smart move to double down because you have to look at your roster and say, hey, is James Pearce better than any of the other pass rushers we have on our roster right now? And if you were looking at both sides and he's better than one of them, you got to pull that trigger right there. The Falcons, they're only missing a few pieces right at this moment. We have an offense that looks really good. We've got a young quarterback who's a little bit older and a little bit more mature at this point. We just need to add that last little bit of a throttle onto things. You don't get dressed up for a big dance, all suited and booted, and you skimp on your haircut. And on another note, the Falcons have decided to extend Drake London's 5th-year option, which sometimes can be a bad move. Basically a franchise tag for rookies. You're basically going to pay more for that player later on if he performs to the abilities that you think he can. But for the Falcons, this is actually a pretty good move because they base it on performance and playing time and the amount of Pro Bowls that they've made. His performance is pretty solid. It's not upper echelon. It's not top tier, and he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet. But I believe that that's something that's coming up potentially very soon this season and the next season following. It could be a huge payday for him. But then again, maybe it's not a huge payday. Maybe Drake London isn't the elite receiver that we're hoping he's going to be. And he's a number one, but he does lack some of that top end speed. What separates them a lot of times is scheme, system, and just basic fundamentals. We know right now that Drake London is a good route runner, and we know that he can catch a lot of passes. He's a great possession receiver for us, but we haven't seen him just have that top end burst and see him just really take the top off of defenses. Right now, that's been Darnell Mooney. I expect Drake London over the next year or two to outperform his position where he's at when he actually has a guy who can really get the ball out there to him. Because we could draft a wide receiver in the next year or two, sign one, trade for one. Situation that you could kind of look at for a proxy is it's not exactly a one-for-one, but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins' first year, he was actually a really solid number one receiver, but Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. So we could easily see ourselves in a situation where Drake London is 1,000, maybe a 1,200-yard receiver again next year, and we're in a spot to sign somebody who could be even more deadly than he is, or even more deadly than Darnell Mooney, because keep in mind, we only signed him to a 3-year contract. At the end of next season, he'll have 1 year to go, and we'll have to decide if we're going to re-sign him or not. A lot of fans are very ecstatic about us getting Cobee Bryant at cornerback. We've also got Nash, Simeo Barrow, Joshua Gray, and Jordan Williams as well on the offensive line. I'm excited about these players as well too, but not for the reasons that some people. Cobee Bryant had a 5th or 6th round draft projection. I've seen some fans suggesting that he'd be our 3rd down nickel corner or something like that. And if he does pan out to that, hey, all the more the merrier. But the reason I'm happy about him and Nick Nash is because I'm looking at those guys to be good special teamers for us. If we're going into camp and we're worried about our undrafted free agents being a necessity as starters, that's a bad place to be in. It's always great if you can find gems in that spot, but I'm really hoping that the guys we drafted at nickel and that the guys we have on our roster can actually do what we need them to do at wide receiver. The most overlooked and maybe most important aspect of the 3 phases of football is your special teams. You need a guy like Nash or a guy like Cobee Bryant to be able to go down, be gunners, be physical, and be able to hit people. These are guys who are really good in college, and they can come into the pros and contribute immediately as special teamers. Players like Cordero Hodge, Olamide Zaccheaus. A lot of fans love guys like that because they flash at points on offense and they can make big plays. But these guys are also huge special teamers, not only in the punt return game and the kickoff return game, but again, going down and be able to make key tackles. You have to have guys who can do that and do that very well. Oftentimes on your team, you're relying on some of your starters to do things like that. Some of your starting linebackers or safeties. But it's all better when you have rotational guys that can actually go out there and do that. That's really how they earn their living, and they could justify getting even more money than some of these other role players that would be in the league. So that's really how I'm looking for the Falcons to be able to utilize those guys. Oddly enough, I am looking at a guy like Simeo Barrow to come in and maybe potentially get some rotation at defensive line. Guys at those spots actually fall through the cracks a lot more. You look at a guy like Cobee Bryant, he's only got 4.5 speed. It's a reason why he's not really a great coverage guy, but a guy like Grady Jarrett, who we got in the 5th round, it's not uncommon to see a guy from the 6th or 7th round, or even undrafted sometimes, fall through the cracks and have a chip on their shoulder and be able to play that real physical style of ball. Because when you're playing in the trenches, that's how you can stay around long, being physical, strong, and just continuously going. And sometimes they don't have the traits that you would want to see on camera, like the foot quickness and some of that. But just being a monster who could keep coming after you down after down, that's how you stay in the league in the trenches. And on today's segment of Fans Say the Darndest Things, I saw one guy saying that we need to trade Tyler Algier for a 2nd rounder and a 5th rounder and hope to get some value out of him before the end of next season. And no disrespect to him or any fans who think like this, but that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. If I'm another team, there is no way I'm trading you a 2nd rounder and a 5th rounder for Tyler Algier. As well as he's performed so far, I'd be able to get a 4th or 5th round designation on him, but there's a lot of running backs that came out in the draft this year in the 2nd and 3rd rounds that I'd much rather take a chance on than Tyler Algier, and I love Tyler Algier. He's a great running back. People have devalued running. A lot of fans in one breath will devalue running back and say that you can just get anybody else to plug in there. If you can get a 5th rounder for Tyler Algier right now, why would you trade him away? You don't know that the 3rd rounder next year would be better than what Tyler Algier is right now, and you don't know that Tyler Algier is better than that 3rd rounder that you would get next year. I blame Madden. People look at these players and they say, oh, you can just get somebody else And they assume because they're playing with these guys on Madden that they can just plug and play anybody. But in the NFL, some of these players actually have values that come to you intrinsically that you can't just plug and play and replace another person. He has more value to us right now than something in the future. A 5th rounder next year, a 4th rounder next year. We don't know what that's going to turn into. But if Bijan Robinson goes down this year, hey, that's a huge part for us. Unless we have a guy in camp or there's a guy that we can sign that we just feel like we have a great deal on, I don't know that I'd be wanting to trade him away right away anyway. It's just like when people want to trade Kyle Pitts for a 3rd rounder or a 4th rounder or a 2nd rounder. I'm not certain that there's going to be a tight end in the NFL draft that's better than Kyle Pitts next year in the 2nd or 3rd round. Why would you trade him? I think a lot of fans vastly overestimate and underestimate the value of these picks for teams in certain situations. And every team isn't the same. By now, it's no surprise that our defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich's son, actually prank called Shedeur Sanders during the draft. I know that young people do stupid things all the time, but his son might earn the award for one of the dumbest moves ever by somebody. Why would you film a prank call that you did? The whole idea is to not get caught and not let the person know who it was that did it. At this point, he's been fined $100,000, and the Falcons have been fined $250,000. I even seen people that were calling for Jeff Ulbrich's job, as if when they were children, they didn't do stupid things that their parents, because of things that they did. It's very tasteless, but I will say, you got to commend Shedeur for his class in the situation. All right, guys, that's our show for today. Stay tuned with us throughout the rest of the offseason. I'll keep you guys posted with my opinions on any of the future free agent signings that we have. Also, be on the lookout for my Football Made Easy series from Point Game Official, where I break down more of the seemingly more complex aspects of football to the average fan. And if you like what we're doing over here at Point Game Official, hit that like and subscribe button for us. Small thing to you, big thing for us. Simo, Point Game Official, checking out, baby. Peace.